So if you remember, we always start our meetings with a land acknowledgement, so I'm just gonna go ahead and read through that to you, since that's pretty small up there on the screen. The city and county of Denver honors and acknowledges that the land on which we reside is the traditional territory of the Ute, Cheyenne, and Arapaho peoples. We also recognize the 48 contemporary tribal nations that are historically tied to the lands that make up the state of Colorado. We honor elders past, present, and future, and those who have stewarded this land throughout generations. We also recognize that government, academic, and cultural institutions were founded upon and continue to enact exclusions and erasures of Indigenous peoples. May this acknowledgement demonstrate a commitment to working to dismantle ongoing legacies of oppression and inequities, and recognize the current and future contributions of Indigenous communities in Denver. Thank you. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and kick it off to our council member.
Thank you, Sabrina. My name is Daryl Monson. I'm a city council member for City Council District 9. I wanted to start first by, we're already pretty quiet, but take a moment of silence. Tonight we normally remember individuals who lost their lives living unsheltered on our streets. So we just take a few moments before that, and then I'll do a welcome to everyone being here for coming here tonight. Thank you so much, everyone. First and foremost, thank you so much to the Johnson Rec Center and the Rec Center staff for hosting us here tonight. We love this spot. We've held several events here, and it's always been a welcoming place for folks within the Swansea, Elyria, and Globeville communities. Thank you so much for bringing us back here. We look forward. I can see you sticking your head out the door there. Thank you so much at Brick City for having us here. We look forward to seeing you again, being here again with you for another event. I want to thank the administration and their team for setting this up tonight. It takes a lot of work to make sure that we pull this all together. So thank you so much to each of the folks from each of the departments who are here to answer questions and to do the presentation tonight to provide input to neighbors as to what are the next steps within the Radisson, how we are providing support to community, and the ways in which we will provide for community input throughout this process. I'd like to thank our friends from Denver Fire, Denver Police. We have Chief Thomas who's here tonight to answer any questions on public safety. We'd like to thank our interpreters, and obviously I'd like to thank my amazing staff member, Lynn Lumber Hunt, who's always here helping to plan and organize for these events. This discussion at this time is extremely important. We have in the city of county of Denver, I think tonight we had a vigil. We have close to 200 folks who lost their lives on the streets in 2023 thus far. The year still is ongoing. We have a moral opportunity and objective to ensure that we increase the dignity of folks who are living in poverty, folks who are living unsheltered on our streets. I believe strongly that this project is part of that process. I also believe that in having understanding and supporting the neighbors and the residents and the small businesses that surround, whether it's the hotels or market communities that we have, that we are housing, providing some level of shelter to these individuals and residents in our city. We're going to discuss a little bit of those steps that we're going to take to make sure we are informing and engaging with community and that we're supporting them as well as supporting the residents. I am honored to be your city council person for District 9. I'm looking at the faces in this room. I've met many of you throughout on the last 5 months in many of the discussions we've held here in Globeville, Elyria, and Swansea. I look forward to getting into this discussion. The mayor is a little bit delayed. He will be here tonight for the majority of the discussion. The mayor is actually here right now. I can see his staff coming through. I want to thank you all so much for being here. I'll pause for a moment as he's skipping in here. In about 2 minutes. So why don't we just move forward, Sabrina, and then we'll introduce the mayor when you want.
Sorry, I'm so sorry. I didn't get that in the agenda. Sorry. So these are our norms for the evening. So we just ask that everyone commits to engage in these very sensitive and important conversations respectfully. That you keep any personal stories or information confidential, so you're not sharing other people's names and confidential information. Please listen with an open mind to all of our speakers and express disagreements respectfully and constructively. And then just know that everyone here is here to support the community, our speakers here tonight, and the facilitator in keeping our discussion moving forward in alignment with these meeting norms. And then avoid making any judgments or assumptions about others' ideas or contributions. So really just trying to remain respectful toward everyone who's here. And with that, I will hand it over to Dory Higa from the Department of Housing Stability to walk through our content.
Good evening. My name is Midori Higa. I use she, her pronouns. I'm the Director of Homelessness Resolution Programs for the Department of Housing Stability. That's a lot of words to say. My team oversees the contracts that we have with our service providers in the community that serve people experiencing homelessness. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about our homelessness initiative. 2023 count of people experiencing homelessness showed that more than 1,400 Denverites were unsheltered and living outdoors without access to the basic housing and essentials we all need to survive. Because of this, Mayor Johnston launched the House 1,000 initiative to bring 1,000 unsheltered Denverites inside by the end of the year. This work is permanently closing encampments. And through the emergency declaration, we have worked to quickly expand housing options and shelter alternatives like micro communities and non-congregate shelter. So through the House 1,000 initiative, the city is working towards standing up 7 sites across the city, known sites that we have right now. 3 of those are considered micro communities. One of those sites is in Overland. I'll try to point at these things. This is a city map and it's very blurry, so I apologize. So one of those will be in Overland. Another one will be in Civic Center, and then we plan to open one by the end of the year over in Central Park. And then we're also working to have non-congregate shelter sites. So 2 of those sites are already operating in Northeast Park Hill. And one is opening before the end of the year in Hampton. I also didn't know this was called Hampton until today. And then the one that we're going to talk about today is the Madison that's opening in your district in Louisville. So you are all welcome to track the city's progress on the city's website for our housing initiative. This is data that we pulled this morning. It should be updated tomorrow and have some new numbers on it. But as of this morning, we have brought 607 people inside. 97% are still inside since we've supported their move, which is great and phenomenal work. And 30%, which is a large number of those folks, have moved on to their own permanent housing option. And 110 have been inside at shelter for over 30 days, which means they're not going back to the street. They're staying in the shelter that we've worked to put them in. So we're going to work towards talking about the Radisson hotel change of use. So the Department of Housing Stability, the department that I work for, we have a 5-year strategic plan. It was approved by City Council in 2021. And it includes the strategic acquisition of hotels for the conversion into affordable and supportive housing, and includes the expansion of shelter, inclusive of alternatives like micro communities and non-congregate shelter. I'm going to keep going on this one. Oh. So most recently completed the 2024 annual action plan, and our action plans provide the opportunity and flexibility to reflect on progress and adjust as needed. They are developed with input from our housing stability strategic advisors. Councilman Watson used to be on that committee. So that committee itself is appointed, and it's a public advisory body. And the 2024 action plan is further shaped by Mayor Mike Johnston's vision for a Denver that is vibrant, affordable, and safe for everyone, and where everyone has access to stable, dignified housing with the services they need. In 2024, Host is giving focus and aiming to overperform on 3 goals. First, addressing unsheltered homelessness. Second, expanding access to affordable housing opportunities. And last, preventing evictions. Okay, so why is everyone here? So Radisson Hotel, you just heard all this wonderful introductory information, which is very relevant. But the Radisson Hotel has been functioning as a shelter for migrant families, and that was up until December 15th. And in that time, while we were serving migrant families in that particular space, we were working with a lot of different people to provide support with them, specifically the city's Department of Human Services. They were offered opportunities for school and making sure that they were in a place where they wanted to go to school, employment opportunities and housing opportunities as well. And so we worked on all of those things with folks that have left that space, that left the space last weekend. Were given an opportunity about where they wanted to go. So if they wanted to stay in the neighborhood, we worked to provide another space for them in the neighborhood. And if they were wanting to look to go to somewhere else, we were hoping to support them to go to the place where they wanted to be. So really, this is all about the change of use. And so we're working for a full lease for the hotel to operate as a non-congregate shelter and applying that change of use from a hotel to a shelter. This will serve as a 24/7 shelter operation with supportive services for individuals and couples across 220 rooms. That service provision will be provided by Bayhawk Enterprises, who's phenomenal and does a lot of great work in the community. Their shelter model does incorporate a lot of employment support, really looks at what the individual needs and makes sure that folks have that case management that focuses on what their goals are to get them into supportive housing.
With that, we're just going to talk a little bit real quickly about community participation opportunities. So you're going to be able to not only talk tonight, but we are going to have opportunities to get involved in other ways. The mayor's office is coordinating a lot of opportunities for welcoming guests into the community. So at DoubleTree, we did some really incredible artwork and work to bring people in and welcome them into the neighborhood. So there will also be volunteer opportunities. And then lastly, we have the opportunity for you to participate in a good neighbor agreement. That process brings together our providers, the city and neighbors to talk about concerns that you have and to be able to address them in an agreement that you can have regular meetings and checking in on it and ensure that those agreements are being followed over time. If you're interested in participating in that good neighbor agreement, we want to encourage you to go ahead and scan this QR code, and I believe we have it back on the tables over there as well. And then we'll be working to select people to participate in that process and help form that good neighbor agreement that we'll look at as we go forward. Again, just some volunteer opportunities, which I believe are also on that back table. And with that, we're going to go ahead and welcome Mayor Mike Johnston and take questions.
Well, Xbox Screen and Xbox for taking us on. Thank you for joining. Delighted to be here to answer questions, comments, feedback that people have. Happy to bring in experts that are here as well, but mostly we're here to have a conversation with community members about thoughts or questions that they have. So I'm going to open it up. Yes, we already met. Please jump in. What? There we go.
What provisions are in place for Bayhawk Enterprises in the hotel to prevent crime and trash from leaving the Radisson site and going to the neighboring properties? I'm 2 buildings away, and when the immigrants house there, and it's a noble cause, and I understand why you had to do it, we experienced a lot of increased trash and increased crime as a result of that. I was wondering what's going to prevent that from taking place with this use.
Thank you for the question. So I'll start with council. Whenever you want to jump in, feel free to. We are, as you I think indicated, we have transitioned the migrant new arrivals out of that site. They will not be housed there anymore. And we do have different structures around how we've done these hotel sites that we use for folks who we unhoused people that are different from the migrant sites. And a couple of those things include that what you won't see in these contexts are, first of all, we do have around the clock staff. We have around the clock security. We have supervision and support. We have mental health supports, workforce training, addiction support, all on site. But there also is not any camping outdoors on the site or in the surrounding facilities. So there's not the ability to have spillover like we've seen in the past from some of our sites that support migrants where they might have a 14-day length of stay. When they have in the hotel, they end up camping nearby or somewhere nearby because they don't have access to those services yet. That's not the structure for these folks. They're coming, arriving, getting wraparound services. And then part of that is long-term housing navigation to move them into permanent housing. So when people are moving out, they're moving from us into permanent housing.
That also does allow us to do increased patrols in the area. So Chief Thomas is here, the police chief, and one of the things we do around each of these sites is elevated patrols, not just on the site, but in the neighborhood to make sure there aren't other safety concerns. What we've seen is that this allows us to move from what is currently the least safe, least secure structure, which is these unsanctioned cameras all in the city that don't have supervision or support or resources. We move people indoors. We were able to close a lot of those cameras by seeing them closing around the city and then get people directly connected to services. We think this is a much better way to serve those individuals and to serve the surrounding neighborhood in terms of safety. We will also have priority opportunity for neighbors that have concerns to directly send us feedback or concerns through our 311 line. So if there are concerns that come to us and the police team, so we can respond immediately.
And David, I'll add quickly, and thank you so much for reaching out to our office and having discussions with us. We're going to, within my office, add another level of support. We're going to have a monthly meetings beginning February with Bayard and with the community. So either at the Radisson, one of their conference rooms, convention rooms, or at the Birdseed Collective. And we're going to hold those meetings nearby, have discussions with folks to provide to us things that they're seeing or not seeing, that are things that are working well, things that aren't working well. And as I shared with you and some of the other business leaders that I've met, I plan on touring each of the businesses, walking through those business leaders and speaking with them as to what their needs and what their supports that they need from us. We also have with us some folks from Bayard. Wanted to give a quick sense of kind of how they engage not only the community that's living within the residences that they support and lead, but also how they engage with community as a whole. So I'm going to have whichever one of these folks from Bayard want to speak, please introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Tammy Bellafoto, I'm the Executive Director of Bayard Enterprises. And we are running what we are calling Housing Works. And the reason we call it Housing Works is because we are very much into getting people to become self-sufficient by getting them jobs, getting them benefits if that's what they need, if they're unable to work. So we have a great team over there. If you ever want to come over and say hello, this is Peter Divey. He is our Director of Operations, and he's running the site for us. We are trying to make sure that everyone is engaged in services with us. We're going to have a total of 6 case managers, 2 employment specialists, 2 benefits acquisition folks out there, and a program manager. So we are going to have probably about 1 staff to every 20 people staying at the hotel. Yes, sir.
I have a question. I live at 47.
Thank you all so much.
I live at 47th and Pearl Street, and since the immigrants have been coming in by the busloads, we have a lot of trash that go to a food bank, get food. They drop what they don't want. They drop off on 47th in the boxes. They're underneath I-70. I-70, Washington, underneath I-70, and they're standing there trying to wash windows. They stole all the squeegees from 7-Eleven. It's really a problem under I-70 because they got kids out there. It's a hazard, and along with the trash. And I wish that you could have some kind of support within your organization with all the neighbors around.
Absolutely. So thank you for that question. We are providing food on site 24/7. So they have access to any type of food they want. They do not need to go to a food bank. So I'm hoping that our folks won't go there and get food to bring back, because we have an abundance of food that's been donated to us, and they shouldn't have to leave to go to the food bank.
But they get trash and stuff in the neighborhood.
The other thing we can do is, with our Denver Day Works program, we go out and we clean up sites. So we can talk to the city and get Denver Day Works to come there maybe once a week and get them to clean up those areas. Let's do.
I'm going to jump into you, sir, because I really appreciate the question. 2 things. One of the reasons we love Bayard as partners is they do a lot of the best workforce training programs in the city, which help people get back up on their feet and get to work. And some of those are entry-level jobs like trash cleanup and trash pickup. And so it's a great chance to get people mobilized. The other thing is they share our commitment to say, we both want to keep the site clean and we want to keep the neighborhood. I feel like it's a win-win for everyone. So I love your idea of, can we collaborate both between the city, between the residents, between neighborhood groups to say, how do we work together to make sure the whole neighborhood feels well taken care of? We are committed to doing that. We'd love to partner with you on doing that. The right person from our team might be probably Millie. I don't know, Millie, are you the right one? Or Alex, who should be point on this? Right, Millie is at the back right there waving. And so we'd love to connect you with her and see how we can partner on that idea.
And one quick point, this is not gonna be a walk-in shelter. So folks aren't going to be walking into the Radisson, for services, for food, or for anything. It's only the residents that reside in the building. It's a very big difference than when we had the migrant shelter where folks had the ability to walk in, receive services, and walk back out into your neighborhood. This is all of the services, food, support, is for the folks that are residing in there.
Hello, this is a two-part question for you, Mayor.
Yes, sir.
First question is, who's paying for all this? Two, you just made a deal with a church for $1.5 million. Is the church gonna pay taxes on that?
Sorry, can you clarify what church you're talking about?
Arch.
Oh, gotcha.
Thank you.
We have a separate site, which is called the Mullen Home, which used to be Little Sisters of the Poor, which is down around 29th and Lowell. That is a site we will use for migrant families who arrive, who have young kids, who don't have access to shelter and housing right now. So that is also be a transitional site for people on the way to housing. We don't want 2 and 3-year-old kids on the street in encampments around the city, and so we want to make sure people have access to services. That is why we partnered with them to do that, and we're excited to open that site, I think, probably next week. So that's been a good step forward. On this site, the resources that we're using for this site comes from our funding that we use in our housing and homelessness department. So most, which is the team that Sabrina and Midori help lead, is the city's focus on housing and homelessness. We have an annual budget we allocate through that. We've allocated additional dollars from the federal and state level to prioritize on this effort. But that is an annual budget we allocate with the focus on homelessness and housing. And what we found is these are a far more effective ways to use taxpayer dollars than other strategies. Let me give you an example.
So we're paying for it.
So our taxpayers
Just say that.
pay for the services in the city around affordable housing. Yeah, as I've said, yeah, it comes from the city
Okay,
county.
yes, you just answered that. Is the church going to pay taxes on the $1.5 million?
I don't know what the church's tax structure is. I think this is actually a partnership with Catholic Charities, which is a nonprofit. So the service provider is a nonprofit. So they would pay the same taxes as County Coalition for the Homeless or as Bayard or as another nonprofit in the city. Same structure.
Can I get that in writing?
Sure.
We'd be happy to give you information on tax liability for that.
And I think one other thing, Mayor, that we didn't share about the Little Sisters of the Hope, where the migrant families are going to. We've been speaking with Garden Place Elementary, where a lot of the kids for migrant families have already enrolled. And part of the process is ensuring that those families can stay in the schools that they're at, as long as they're here in Denver to finish out the semester. We're also working with DPS for transportation. Part of the process to make sure that those families that are now moving to that campus, that's more conducive for families with 3-year-old, 4-year-old, 5-year-old kids, that those kids can actually stay in the schools they want to stay in. So it's 5, 6, 7-year-old kids, and their families can still live in the community and not living in encampments around Radisson where they were currently at.
I'm asking if, when you say migrants, are they legal or illegal migrants? I don't want my taxpayers' money going to the illegal people here. Another thing you mentioned, the kids going to Garden Place School. Are these kids vaccinated or not? Because I don't want all these people or the migrants that are going to be going to Garden Place with all my neighbors over here with their children, maybe carrying a disease. I heard on the news that they had one case of the chicken pox that came out last week or the week before. You were aware of that, Your Honor?
No, sir, I've not.
Okay, I'm not finished yet. All right. Okay, another thing, Your Honor, I've heard that.
You can just call me Mike. It's okay.
I'm
Yes,
a first generation immigrant here since 1956. We came over through Ellis Island. A lot of people don't know what that is. We had to get vaccinated. We had to wait 5 years to come here legally. What about the people that are waiting 5 years to come here to say Colorado, whatever?
Yes, sir.
Hey, I don't want my taxpayers' money going out to the illegals here. Your Honor, if somebody breaks the law, we get arrested, you have the police department right here, they'll arrest me right away.
Yes, sir. I'm happy to answer that. Thank you for your question.
Thanks very much.
Yes, sir. So two things. One is I think, you may know, this site will not be used, to house migrants. That is not what this site will be used for. I want to speak to the folks that arrived. I just want to be clear. This site is supporting what would have been chronically unhoused individuals currently in the city and county of Denver, folks that are struggling in and around Denver right now or living on the streets. Those folks, about 85% of them all are from the Metro Denver area. These are folks that have any grown up in. We were out there today, and a guy from my team met a guy that he played basketball against, who we knew from high school. So these are folks that are living out on the streets, who are from and around the city and county of Denver, who are served here. Let me talk to you about the newcomers that are arriving to Denver. The great majority of folks that we have that have arrived in the city and county of Denver have come from Venezuela. They've come from Venezuela fleeing political persecution and civil strife there. They come to the border. They get granted an initial claim of asylum. And so they've come to the country and they are waiting on a court administration of their asylum claim. In the same way that if you came as a refugee from Afghanistan, after the Afghanistan war, if you came from Ukraine as a refugee in the last year, those folks came on asylum claims. They go to court. The court decides whether to grant that asylum claim or not. If they grant it, they're allowed to stay legally as asylees. If they don't, they're not allowed to stay. Those people that we contact are overwhelmingly folks that have filed for asylum and are waiting to have the court make a final decision on their asylum case. So they are refugees looking for that asylum, the great majority of the population.
Okay, we're gonna go ahead and move on. We have a couple other people who had been waiting for the mic.
Oh, sorry, yeah, I did skip your question. Thank you, sir. I just met with the superintendent of public schools yesterday. He asked about vaccinations, very fair question. They've enrolled a number of students who've entered, they're newcomers. All those students when they enter have the same vaccination requirements that my kid does and the other kid does when they enter the school. So any enrollee at Denver Public Schools has to have the same vaccination requirements. That is true. Thank you for the question. The young lady over here.
Hi, my name is Nancy. I live in this community. I live in Swansea. I have a question for you. And
Yes.
actually, you just have seen the one side of the coin, not the other side. I know that you guys are focused right now on the people from Venezuela.
Yeah.
But what about the other migrants that have been working here? We're paying taxes. And actually, we're trying to be educated in many things. Just give us an opportunity. And we don't have the right to get these resources as they're getting it now. And now you're cutting communities, resources for people that now in this crisis that everything is going out. I mean, how you're gonna address that? Not even Native people, well, I know a little bit of history, but not even Native people have all these resources for them.
Yeah.
And how these people, I mean, they're just coming here, okay, they have a rough time. We do it in Mexico too. We find our ways to live here, just trying to do our best. I applied for immigration, it's been more than 10 years. I'm still waiting. Now the waiting is more. So for us, it's getting more harder. And these people are getting everything like how we say in Mexico, just in in a silver plate. Well, we had to fight very hard, even receive insults from people that it's been racist with us. Very hard times, and we have to keep going, and these people is getting everything like just out of nowhere. I mean,
Sorry,
and
go
it's
ahead.
fine, and it's fine. I mean, everybody deserves a second chance or however it is it. But how you're gonna deal with the other part? I mean, the other side of the migrants, it's not just Venezuela that you have to focus on. I mean, we have the crisis of homeless people. I mean, it hasn't been done anything, and now you're dealing with this. And then what's gonna happen with us?
Yeah.
Like this community, it's been labeled that it's uneducated and it's the poorest community. So how you're gonna deal with taking our resources from our communities and just sharing with them? not even you can deal with this community? That was my question, and I'm sorry if it's rude or rough, but
not at all. Very fair.
we've been
Very
seeing so
fair.
many things because Venezuelan people just went to my sister's house and they're like, I want that motorcycle. You have to give it to me. So my brother-in-law, he was very pissed and he was like, you just come to me and ask for it? And he was like, yeah, because I want it. I need it. He was like, you know what? I saved 3 freaking years. Well, he used another word. I saved money to buy this motorcycle for 3 years and it's a second hand. So you just come out of nowhere. I want this and I'm gonna take it. That's not the way it should be. So
Yeah, I agree. Can I ask you one question before I answer yours? Can you say a little bit, I know for you specifically, you talked about one of the challenges being you waiting for work authorization also. Can you talk about other either resources you need or challenges you're facing that we could be helpful on so I can address that in your question?
yeah, we, in our communities, there's a lot of challenges, like my husband passed away 8 years ago.
Sorry.
So I applied for the U visa. It's already approved and I have my work with me, thank God. But I'm waiting to get the residence, my residence, to get it all done and everything. I have to wait for a couple or they just say that I have to wait. So that's one, and the other question, if I need something, yes, look, I've been asking the school, it's been 2 years that we need the bus for my daughter, she's autistic, and I have applied and we don't have access. And it's right, I live on 47 and Thompson Court, and the school is on Bruce Randolph, so I can't get a bus. And I see these kids that they're getting the connector, and that's good for them. I mean, thank God they have that chance, but our challenges is every day that I have to stop working because I have to deal with my daughter's issues, taking her to school and all of that. And yes, there are many things that we need in our communities, like we can afford a rent because the rents, they're very high.
Yes.
Obviously, sometimes we're gonna need support just to help us kind of pay a little bit or apply to pay our bills and all of that. That's what we need in this community, and actually cutting out those resources for us is like, you're just sending us to I'm sorry for the word, but to a shadow.
Yeah, thank you. So let me answer a couple. First, let me talk about what services we are providing to new migrants. Then I want to talk about the two things you raised about both immigration support for people that have been here for a longer time, about affordable rents, and also about school-based services. So in terms of what we're doing for new arrivals, we do not have a list of services we're going to offer.
Yeah, that's.
Right now, what we're offering is 14 days of shelter for folks that arrive new. That is the extent of the service. We're not allowing them permanent housing. We're not allowing them, we are trying to help them get up on their feet and find their own jobs and access to their own work. Many of them have the same long immigration challenges you described in terms of applications for residency or citizenship or work. So we are helping them along the way, but just know if you're an individual, a single individual, it's a 14-day support. And then we're expecting folks to get on their own and succeed and support themselves. So I think that's important to know as a balance. There are other cities like New York that are giving people housing forever. We're not doing that. And so we do have a different approach. And it's about how people get settled and then get up and out on their own. But to your point, I think we are very focused on what are the services for folks that are right now working very hard and struggling. I'll tell you on affordable housing, while we're working hard to get 1,000 people right now that are homeless off the streets and into housing and shelter, we have a much more even ambitious goal to try to 3,000 units every year of permanently affordable housing for everybody that's working families who are just trying to be able to pay the rent. All that means is if you're a teacher or you're a nurse or you're a firefighter or you're a server or anyone that's working hard in the city, right now, we know about half of the people that work in Denver right now can't afford to live in Denver tonight, right? Because they're paying too much in rent. What this would do is set up units where if you live there, you don't have to pay more than 30% of your income to rent. And the rent doesn't go up unless your income goes up. So you don't have to worry at the end of the month that the landlord's going to jack up your rent, so you're getting pushed out of the unit. So we are working very hard on expanding those affordable units for folks that are here now, working now, struggling to be able to afford to live in Denver now. That is a very important priority. Second is we'd love to help on the Denver Public Schools transportation issue. Happy to talk to the superintendent about that. Obviously, we don't control the school district, but we can definitely partner with them and help. And we are aware of these ongoing challenges on work status for migrants. We've been pushing hard for both deferred action for childhood arrivals through DACA, allowing people increased access to work, because we know there's a lot of jobs people are trying to fill, and folks who are trying to work, we want to let those people who want to work be able to work. And so be happy to connect to the million and other ways we can support, but we are very aware of those challenges and working hard to address them.
And Mr. Mayor, I'll add one quick thing, and I appreciate the question that you asked. Something very tangible that we're doing right here in Globeville. I think folks in the room are aware of the Clarion Hotel that also was just zoning change that was just purchased, not just purchased, but was just zoning, was just changed the zoning so we can have long-term housing, deeply affordable housing for residents. We have 1, 2, 3 bedrooms. This is not a transitional housing for folks who are living in encampments. This is actually deeply affordable, deed-restricted housing, as the mayor has stated. One of the steps within the Good Neighbor Agreement that we began discussions with GS Coalition and others in the community on is to make sure that for some of the conference rooms currently in the Clarion, where we're going to be housing or holding meetings for folks that live in community that may be moving into Clarion when those apartments are available, they're going to host meetings to discuss some of the things that you're stating. For Mexican immigrants that currently live in community that don't have direct contact, we're discussing those opportunities. We also are going to look at the Clarion to be one of the focused on deeply affordable housing developments within the city that has the prioritization policy. And what that is, the prioritization policies for folks in communities like Globeville, Elyria, Swansea, that were displaced based on gentrification from those neighborhoods. They would have first priority to move back into the communities that they were displaced from. So absolutely heard what you're saying and have been in discussion with community members, and specifically as it pertains to the work within Clarion to make sure that we have dedicated opportunities for families to come sit and have surrounded services for exactly the stuff that you're talking about. So we'll continue communicating that in our newsletters and bring that out to community. So thank you so much for bringing that forward. So.
Thank you, Councilmember. If you don't mind, we've got a lot of people who wanted to ask questions. If you'll raise your hand, I'll get back to you. Thank you.
My name is Joe Ortega. I live in Swansea.
Yes, sir.
All the immigrants that you guys threw off the Radisson moved over here to the Western Motel.
Yeah.
And we have the same problem with the trash, with them stealing bikes, coming to the neighborhood asking for money. And they all got cars. They all got bikes. I gotta have insurance for my car. They didn't have insurance. They probably don't even have a driver's license. And they're throwing their trash all over the place. In the morning, I get up, I go take my grandkids somewhere. They're all in the alleys over there, sitting down in the alleys. I'm getting sick of it. We got to do something about it.
Mr. Mayor, can I jump in first? And Mr. Salazar, thank you so much.
Ortega.
Mr. Ortega, I apologize. Thank you so much. I appreciate you, walking with for us going to Western Motel together and meeting the families that live there and meeting the owners. I want to give an update to the community. We have been focused on the actual families that are living at the Western Motel, and this is a place that's not sanctioned by the city. It's a hotel that is not in the best of shape, but they have about 200 families living there.
They got about 5 people living in each room.
Yeah, and what we've done, Mr. Ortega, we're working collaboratively with folks to make sure we can move those families to places that actually won't continue the problems that you're discussing. So for example, we have about.
That hotel
Yeah.
down, because I tell you what, it's a rat
Yeah.
infested place.
That's
It's
right.
got cockroaches, it got bed bugs.
Correct. Mr. Ortega, what I was going to say is that 30 of those families, since we've been there, have been moved out to actually other shelters for folks to make sure that we're reducing it. We are committed to ensuring that in the new year, we continue to reduce the number of the folks that are living there. The city does not have at this point a relationship with the motel, but we're providing services. We have a caseworker that's going over there. And as I ask you and your family, continue to keep us in the loop as far as any of the activities that aren't conducive for the impacted communities around there. And we can continue to work with District 1 Police, continue to work with the service provider that's identifying families and identifying housing. And we're going to continue listening to Mr. Ortega. It didn't start overnight. Got 300 folks that get there, but we're definitely going to be working towards making sure we reduce those numbers in the upcoming months.
But
Thank you.
says, you know,
Yeah, and we're moving up to more permanent spots and start taking, and once again, you and your family, I look forward to continue working with you all and the community surrounding the Western to make sure we have, a reduction of that site, and we have other steps that we're taking.
Thank you. If you all will just continue to raise your hands, I'm watching to see who's next. And we'll keep going. Did you want to?
No, it's okay.
So I just had a quick question. Everybody's talking about litter and whatnot. So I'm just wondering, all these services are being offered to these people, which I think is great. Is there a level of accountability or the rules that they have to follow in order to take advantage of these services? I'm sure even if it's 14 days, the services are offered after that. And, you know, when we're talking about trash, and no disrespect to me, but sending somebody to come pick up the trash, I mean, sounds like enabling to me. I mean, nobody comes and picks up my trash, and I put it in the trash, you know, so that would be my question. Is there rules and accountability that has to be upheld for the people partaking in these services?
A great question. And yeah, thank you. I'm going to give it to the folks at Bayonne to answer that. I want to just reiterate super important that is right. There are rules and expectations hand in name. This is now new use of the hotel, new population, new organization to oversee it. So I very much hear the frustrations our working experience has been going forward. So one of the reasons why we brought Bayonne in is I think they have a great track record of working with this population and setting real accountability and standards and delivering on them. So I want both of you to give us a fresh start and them a fresh start as the new provider of the new population. Let them share a little about the plan for how we're going to do just what you described. Brilliant.
Good evening. So as we started working on this site, we wanted to do something different. Personally involved in 7 other hotels during COVID, floating people and supervised those. We want to do something different. We want to have a little bit more accountability. We actually have a list of 8 offenses that are immediate discharged out of our facility, which is unlike any facility that's been opened before. We want accountability. We've started the process of teaching people about living indoors. We started the process of teaching people that, you know, they're in some abundance now. They don't have to hoard things, which are some of the first steps. It's a process with these wraparound services where people learn to live indoors again. And people need that opportunity and have people be supportive of them and hold them accountable at the same time. We've also created for people who have lower level behavioral problems, a committee of people that come together, including the owner of the hotel, including myself, including case managers and people with mental health expertise to try to coach people towards the kind of behaviors that we're going to want when we full-time house them in the community. This is transitional housing. And the thing about transitional housing is that's exactly what we want to do is provide those wraparound services. I think it's really important to understand. And as the mayor referenced, most of these people are Colorado natives. They're the sons and daughters of your neighbors. They're the sons and daughters that have grown up in this community. And nationwide, not just in the community, there's been a failure to address that issue. And the mayor has set this goal. That's an admirable goal, and it's a compassion-based goal. In terms of security, we have around-the-clock security. I think there's a lieutenant standing back here from the police department who thought I accosted him because I'm like, I need to talk to you. Because we want to make sure that we are having a positive impact on the community, both the community that we're conducting this operation in and the communities where we're hopefully going to eventually house these people in permanent housing. And I know it's really difficult when a building like this comes into the community because it looks like there's a lot of activity. But the truth is when you house people, their impact on 911 services, their impact on crime from that same group of people, when we've done studies, is immediately reduced and continues to reduce over the first 2 years. So it looks a little bit like there's a lot of problems over there. It's actually less than the same number of people created in the community. And somebody tell me, well, there's all this crime. We know that since pre-pandemic times, crime has tripled in Denver. We know that the police chief is doing a great job against last year's numbers and getting that back down. But crime existed in our communities before homeless people lived in our communities. And it's not necessarily the homeless people that are committing the crimes. They're just really a convenient target. So I just want to give you a primer of what we're doing. We're working out there madly hard to greet these people, make this a place where they feel safe, because if they feel safe, their behavior is going to be different. And so that's really our tactic.
Thank you. Peter, do you want to this?
Hello, everyone. I have a comment and question probably. I'm gonna talk as a resident of Globeville and Elyria since I lived before in Elyria. We do have crime in our neighborhoods, but it's not the same as the one that we have. We've seen a lot of robberies. And for them, it's not a robbery because they come with the idea that they have to get everything for free. And that's what they're getting, everything for free. So I think the plan of letting them in, because this is an open state sanctuary, is to have the norms and rules since the beginning, because we've seen a lot of now crime, robberies. They get aggressive if you don't give them money. And I'm not against them because I work with the children of these families. And it's very sad that they're using their children to ask for money because they don't want to look for a job. So there has to be some plan that tells them that they have to do this by the law. I mean, we all know about the laws. If we do something, there's the cops. So they have to know that also. Also, they have to know that they're not going to get everything for free. They have to get a job. Like my friend Nancy was saying, there's a lot of immigrants that have been here for 10, 20, 30 years. When I came here, I was only 8 years and I had to work. So most of them come with the idea that they don't need to work because I don't know who told them that they're going to get everything for free. So I think since they get here, there has to be those rules. Someone has to talk to them about the law, that they're not going to get everything for free, that they cannot cross anyone's yards to steal, because for them it's like, oh, it belongs to me because I get everything for free. They get aggressive if you don't get them money. So there's a lot of issues, and it's really hard for us in these three neighborhoods because we just got out of a big project, the I-70 project, and we feel like nothing is ever done. It's always one impact, another impact, and this is everyone. It's not just the residents, it's the business people that works here. I mean, everyone had to suffer for the I-70 project. Now we're all suffering from all the trash. So yeah, we do have crimes. Yes, we do have trash. Yeah, we know that we have crime. But this is double, triple the crime. This is double the triple the trash. How can we keep our neighborhoods clean if they throw everything away? And I feel bad because there's a lot of organizations doing a lot for them, giving them, boxes of food and everything. And if they don't want something, they throw everything in the streets. I mean, they don't mind. I mean, they're like, whatever. And trust me, when I came here, when I was only 8 years, I mean, we wish we had someone giving us all the things that they're getting. And we didn't. We have to work. We pay taxes, even if we're immigrants, whatever, we pay taxes every day. So there has to be some kind of responsibility that they have to have. If they want to be here, okay, they're escaping from Venezuela, they went to Colombia, they didn't want to work there, now they're here. There has to be some kind of plan of them getting a job. Yeah, they're gonna get permits to work. And then we go to the other part. What about the other people that don't have even a permit to work and they've been working since they got here? So there's a lot of things that we have to work around. And you see how upset this neighborhood is because it's always us. We feel like targeted all the time. If it's not this, if it's not this development, if it's not that, we always feeling targeted.
Thank you. I'm gonna try to move everybody along because we're running out of shorter on time, and I know there are a lot of comments still.
Great. I'll keep my answer short too. Thank you. Two very important parts. One is, I agree with you, folks have to play by the rules and they have to be accountable. And so that is the case. So two things. If anyone is breaking the law, if they are stealing, if they're robbing, if they're committing crimes, doesn't matter where you came from, how you got here, we are going to hold those folks accountable. Chief Thomas is here, the police team is here. Let me talk to you about how we do that, because here's one of the challenges. Yeah, you're asked about the migrants, obviously newcomers. I know we're here tonight to talk about a hotel that house people that are chronically homeless, but here is an area where these do connect, which is one of the things we're finding is right now, the hardest thing for us to police as a city is 1,000 tents spread out all over the city that are places where you can have open air drug markets, or you can have human trafficking, or you can have crimes that are much harder to enforce and or police. And so we have, last year, our officers had about 8,000 911 calls to encampments, 8,000. There's some of our places where 40, 50, 60% of our officers' time is spent on responding to those encampments because they are the most unsafe places often in the city. By moving folks out of encampments and into housing and closing those encampments, that allows us to redirect police presence to places where we do have the concerns about crime that you've raised and we haven't been as able to respond to. It's also why we've added 167 more officers we're adding onto the force this year, historic expansion of that force. People are available to respond to those calls when they happen. But the rules are, I was with some of the newcomers from Venezuela this morning. Everyone only just asked me one question is, where can I get a job? All I want is a job. So our goal is they got 14 days if they're a single individual to be in transitional housing or shelter. After that, they are on their own. They are finding a job. They are supporting themselves. They should be paying taxes if they're making income taxes or property taxes if they're paying rent like anybody else. So we want, and I think all folks I talk about is what they want. They want to be here. They want to be able to work. They want to be able to support themselves. We are helping them do that. Folks that aren't and are breaking the rules have the same accountability as any of us would have as well. That is the design. Right, I'll get to it after I get her question or whenever it's going to come to you. I just want to make sure we respect the folks that are in line.
Hey, I just am wondering, what are your biggest challenges you're facing in actually solving these problems? Whether it be something that you can't control, like fentanyl use, versus what you can control, funding.
Great. And specifically, you're asking around our unhoused population or around the migrants or both? Okay, so on our folks that have been experiencing homelessness, I think we have a couple of biggest needs. One is enough housing units to be able to move them into. We know that actually we get people into housing, the other needs stabilize, like mental health concerns, like addiction or substance misuse. Those are all exacerbated when living on the street because we're living in that trauma. So the first big challenge was units. The ability to move people into units. These 1,000 units we've helped bring on has been a massive step forward in that. The second is, the providers who help provide that support on the site, and we're there to say, let us help you figure out how to get the job training you need, how to get your first job, how to help know how to show up in an interview, how to help support or fight through addiction needs if they exist. And so I think those are probably the two.
Is there a resourcing for the latter?
It's resources for the service providers, and then it's the staff and the teams to be able to do that. But I'd say it's units, and then it's service providers, and it's resources. But I think our belief is that if we can get 1,000 people into these transitional housing units, they'll stabilize, get back to work, and get back on their feet. I will tell you, sir, your earlier question, what we do know is actually it costs us much more to intervene and support people that are unsheltered on the streets than it does to have them in housing. There's a study, if you want to look it up, it's called the Urban Institute, did this study right here in Denver on the impact of moving people off the streets and into housing, and it shows we actually save more taxpayer dollars than having someone go to the ER for 2 nights and then to jail for 3 nights and back to the streets for 3 days, then 7 911 calls to respond to an individual. Then we're trying to do case management and work with them, but they're on one tent the next day and you find them 3 days later and you can't find them again. We have caseworkers that spend 60% of their time just trying to find someone before they can provide the service. So we do know that's the least effective and the most expensive way to do it. So I think it does take resources to do it the right way, but in the long term, save us more resources to do it this way. Thank you for the question.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Sophia Montoya. I'm a Western Motoring. When they're brought here from another country, Venezuela, are they bussed in and put in an auditorium and explained to them what's required of them? Because they're under the impression that they're seeking asylum. They're above the law. They are going into people's yards and taking their possessions. And on 48th and Vasquez, there's a light. They're constantly in that intersection at that Western Motoring crossing, and you see them just walking into yards. I live directly behind them, behind that motel. They come in and I have a Ring doorbell. They come in, I've got everything secure because I can't afford to go out and buy new rakes or lawn equipment. And they're rolling lawnmowers and rakes and everything, shovels and hydraulic jacks. right down the street. They're coming out of the neighborhood, you know, here you see them walking at 48 and they've got everything in tow with them.
Where
I
is the
called-
police?
I called the police 4 times and was told, there's an officer at the scene. And I said, I'm standing right here.
Where is the
Where
police?
is, and then I text,
I'll let chief or someone.
yeah, and I have all that documentation on my phone.
Please go ahead.
It's like, I had some kids one day, I'm at the light, and, you know, you wait for the light to turn green, and there's a couple cars in front of me, and all these guys are just walking through the street, the teenagers. I think they're the ones, you know, it's not the kids, it's not the wives, it's the kids, the teenage kids that are doing it. You know, and they just think that they can, everything's for free, but they knocked on my window. And I'm like, the light's turning green, the other cars are going, and they're standing there wanting money. And I'm like, well, you know, what are you gonna do, break my window? My mom went to a grocery store, they asked her for money. She said, you know, I don't have anything to spare. Another kid comes, a teenager, and starts calling her down. And, you know, they're giving food and clothing right there in the parking lots.
They want money.
They want money.
They want money.
They're just drinking.
I'm gonna let the deputy respond on the questions or thoughts on this. Thanks. So Lieutenant Kevin Curtis, I work in District 2. So we're definitely aware of where all the migrants are getting the shelters and everything. And as it was mentioned earlier in the meeting, we're actually trying to have a higher presence in there, making more frequent visits. Obviously, 911 calls, we do have to take precedence with that. So as we're able to get in there. I would encourage you, if you're seeing these issues, continue to call and report them so that we can respond appropriately. The Western Motor, we do know that there's an issue going on up there, and like we talked about earlier, we're working on trying to have a long-term solution to decrease the numbers up there. Obviously, we don't want to just displace these families right away, so we have to have kind of some services in place before we, you know.
Allow. It's like, and that's where falling from the second floor.
It is in a very bad spot. Like I said, that's where we're trying to work on having a long-term solution to this so that we can transition them.
Okay. We've got a number of other folks who still have questions, so I just want to keep us moving.
Sabrina, do you want to do speed round, you think, or? How many folks do we have with questions still? Great, maybe 4 or 5. Knowing that I just want to be respectful of people's time, we'll let everyone ask their questions. We just ask you to ask a question about 30 seconds or so. We will listen to all of them. Then I'll answer them as a group, but sometimes there are common themes that connect them. And so that way we make sure and get all the questions answered for folks that want to answer them. So if you wouldn't mind asking your question, we'll listen, make sure we get them all. If we do it in 30 seconds. Let's go. Great. Yes, sir.
My name is Bay Gaines and I own the property that surrounds the Radisson Hotel, so I'm very involved.
Yes, sir.
I'm curious as to how this project will dovetail or complement or whatever the apparently failed project across the street of another 200-room hotel that's been in progress for over 2 years. Are they going to complement each other? Are they going to replace, is one going to replace the other? Or how's that going to work?
Thank you. I'm happy to address both of those.
Hi, my name is Anthony Garcia, Senior. I run the Birdseed Collective. We're on 45th and Grant in Globeville. We provide most of the services for all the people in the community, including the Venezuelans, including the homeless, as well as our neighbors every day. For years and years, we've been doing this. My problem is that we keep putting more poor people in already poor, underprivileged, underserved communities. Why are we doing that? I appreciate that Bayard has all these services that they're ready to give to these homeless people, but our neighborhood doesn't even have those services. We're just a small community center, but we're like the only community center in the whole neighborhood that's able to provide services. So I just want to know, what are we doing to actually help the neighborhood as a whole and not just this one group of people that we're putting into this Radisson?
Great question. I'll be happy to.
One of the comments from Bayad was that there were rules that people had to follow, and if they didn't follow those rules, they would be removed from the hotel. And I think it's good you hold people accountable. When they leave the hotel, are they just walking out into the neighborhood next to our businesses? Are they allowed to have friends just hang out there? They're hanging out in the neighborhood. And maybe this ties into the good neighborhood agreement. That's part of keeping the neighborhood safe and clean. So.
Great question. Thank you for that. Yes, sir.
One more question. I was told by Alex that we were getting an update on Cherry Creek getting a micro homeless community. Because on your map, it skips all the rich areas. Why us?
Happy to answer that. Thank you. Other questions we didn't get to? Yes, Ben. Gracias.
30 años. Estamos hablando muy bien de los que faltan, pero ¿por qué no tenemos aquí los servicios que necesitamos? ¿Podrían cambiar por video? En mi cuadra solamente hay un foco. Es realmente oscuro. Atrás de mi casa no hay luz. He llamado varias veces a Excel y me dicen que sí, pero no vienen. Ahí entran muchas personas y es realmente peligroso. El año pasado asesinó a una persona ahí y seguido hay balanzas y eso. Entonces, ¿qué pasa con los servicios que nosotros necesitamos? Tal vez están fuera de contexto, ¿verdad? Lo que están hablando, pero son necesidades de nuestra vecindad, de las personas que vivimos aquí. Entonces, me gustaría saber qué ayuda nos podrían dar a nosotros también.
No, gracias. Voy a contestarlo. Gracias.
Thank you.
Anybody else that we missed before we start running through all those answers? Okay, this is the last one. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, I have another question. With these people that is coming, I'm not being racist because I'm an immigrant too, but they've been publishing prostitution even on Facebook. How you guys are gonna, because I've been seeing these messages or these, postings that, you can come to this address and I'll give you a massage and with a happy end. We all know what that means. So how you guys are gonna address that? We've been hearing a lot of things in the streets that, because I work for the community too. So how are you gonna address that now that there are a lot of kids on the streets knowing how the rapist people eat in here and how you're gonna deal with even men, women getting, they're getting into prostitution. How you guys are gonna address that and how it's gonna affect the other residents and even the other part of the migrants. So that's one of the part that I want, because all you have been seeing is just one part of the coin, but you haven't seen the other part. And plus, like we say, you guys are cutting a lot of resources for these communities. Like Dolores says, if you go out through Elyria, some parts of Swansea, you will see that they're dark. There are many, they can make a lot of crimes because there is no light.
Yep.
We see the police officer just once a day. And if it's like, if we see it on that day.
I just wanna
Yeah.
go ahead and wrap this up because we do have to try to get out and close the room by 7:30 for Parks and Rec. So I just want to make sure that.
I think that was the one. I know you were waiting. So the last question. Yeah, you're the last one. I'm taking notes on all the questions. I write down the questions, so I'm going to answer all of them. I don't think so. It's making sure I get their questions answered. I don't want to forget all the questions I answered.
Okay, but people depend on you.
Yes.
So believe that, and, that's what I say.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Happy to answer that. Yeah, I should have said that in advance. I'm like a waitress taking an order of 10 orders at a time. I try to make sure I get the notes of all the questions so I can answer them in the right order. So I'll jump in and answer the questions that I have. Councilman Watson, do you want to jump in any at the start or the finish?
Yeah, I'll jump in with some, start with Victoria and I'll.
Great. So a couple, so sir, first to your question about the other site there. That is what used to be the Clarion Hotel. That has been part of a long-term project. The Chronicle Coalition for Homeless is building, which is designed to be long-term housing. So that is people that are moving, that would be apartment units. It would be long-term, what's called permanent supportive housing, where it's permanent housing, you got a lease, then you pay. There's also some supportive services on site. So those are meant to be complementary, not replace themselves. That is the long-term goal, is get people out of what we would call this as transitional housing. Get yourself stabilized, get a job, get steady income, then you move out and do a permanent housing site that could be there, could be in any unit somewhere around the city. So that is the priority and purpose there.
Is that affordable housing?
Pardon?
Affordable housing?
It is affordable, yeah, it's affordable housing, great question. Then to the question about why the sites here, how do we pick those sites? One of the things we intentionally did was try to make sure that we had sites spread out around the city and that they were not concentrated in any one neighborhood. This is the only site in District 9 that we have right now. And we just opened for the first time our first homeless shelter site in Southeast Denver. There never been a site in Southeast Denver before. We went there. We're successfully opening that next week. That was important. The majority of these sites, 5 of the 7 sites, are in neighborhoods that are not majority minority neighborhoods. They are actually much more predominantly white neighborhoods than they are neighborhoods of color. The balance of income across the sites is reflective of the city. So we have not concentrated sites in low-income neighborhoods. We've actually been very intentional to try to make sure that was the case. That is true. We have sites that are the one that's southeast of Cherry Creek. We do have sites in all parts of the city that we're still working to bring on. We started with the first set of units this year. We have 7 sites across 5 city council districts, I think 11. We have more sites we'll bring on in 2024. That will be in other districts that don't yet have sites. So we've committed to this being a citywide effort. And right now, I have to say District 9 has the highest concentration of folks who are currently living unhoused on the streets. And so this neighborhood has been carrying the greatest bulk of the weight in supporting folks, as you know, that are currently unhoused. This strategy allows us to get those folks off the streets and into housing in neighborhoods around the city. Really appreciate your question about both the rules and what happens if someone is discharged. On the rules, this is what makes this so different. Councilman Watson described this. This is much more like, this is like an apartment building, except for a much more restrictive apartment building that have very significant rules. For instance, there is generally a guest policy that you cannot have folks walk up to the site, come in, hang out with friends. Usually you either only have one guest that's allowed. If that guest is allowed, they have to be signed in, they have to be registered, they have to have an ID. So there are not folks coming in and going. It's not what we think of as a walk-up shelter. If you see the sites like in downtown Denver, like Jesus Saves, you can buy that. Those are walk-up shelters. People walk in and walk out every day. You're there for one night. There's no long-term stability. These are folks that really have longer-term commitments. It's like an apartment with a lease where you're there every day. You know your neighbors. They know you. They have obligations to live by those rules. But if someone is exited, no, we do not release them to the street to walk out the front door and figure out where they're going to go. If they have not succeeded at this site, we would move them to a different facility that is more about like a step-down facility, like a congregate shelter, like the ones you see downtown around 48th in Colorado and the Crossroads. So they would, and that is not you didn't succeed here, so good luck. It is a transition you to a lower step-down program that doesn't have as many.
I miss it. I'll add something else on that. At this site, we're not allowing guests. The guests can meet in the lobby, but they cannot stay and they're not going up into the rooms. And it will be based on the caseworkers and the individual security that's there. They're enforcing that. And when someone's discharged, they're not walking out of the Radisson. We're providing transportation. Bayard is providing transportation to the next site. So folks are going to a congregate setting or whatever the other setting is. They're being taken from this site there. They're not walking through the responsive. They're not coming over to your businesses. And as we discussed, we're going to be looking at a very specific plan for businesses in globally responsive to make sure that we're responsive to impacts to them as we're doing with a greater community. I wanted to speak quickly to Birdsea Collective. I want to thank you all for the work that you're doing. My office has been engaging with you, making sure that we're providing the support. You are taking an overwhelming amount of caregiving that you didn't plan on. That is not part of your work, and we want to thank you for that. And we are looking forward to continuing our discussions. But what else are we doing in Globeville, Swansea? This is an initiative that ends December 31st, Housing 1000. Our focus to end, reduce homelessness continues after that. But my office is committed to global area sponsorship. So what are we doing? The Washington Street study, all the work that you and community have been looking for to make sure we update that street and we update 49th Avenue. We're still working on that. We're providing mixed use, not mixed use, but multi-level apartments at 4935 Washington, deeply affordable, plus market rate, plus a library, and we're also bringing in 2 parks. We are not going to turn our back on global area response and only focus on folks who are unsheltered and only focus on migrants. We have a very ambitious plan in the next 4 years to implement the global area response plan that many of you participated in creating, and we have many other steps outside of these 2 steps that we're taking with migrant families as well as unsheltered communities. So thank you once again for all that you all are doing.
Can we get that in writing too?
Yeah, everything that I just stated is already in the public record for the city. The actual development is beginning. We have the plans for Denver Public Libraries already approved, and the 2 parks have already approved. They're coming through city council. So it's all public record. I'll make sure you get that.
También quiero contestar tu pregunta que me pediste. Y eso es porque venimos aquí, es porque sabemos que hay más problemas que solo los que hablamos esta noche. Hay más problemas de las luces, de las ayudas en las calles y Señor Watson y yo queremos trabajar juntos en esos problemas también. Vamos a tener otros puntos cada 3 meses aquí, que yo voy a estar aquí con ustedes y él también, para que si hay más problemas que no funcionan, I'll translate for you too. I'll do it in English real fast. Podemos hablar de cómo arreglar esos problemas y podemos ver que estamos haciendo, que estamos volviendo adelante por eso. Entonces queremos hablar más y ya tienes Billy ahí también que puede ayudar. I just said to her quickly, I'm not as good at Spanish, so it took me a lot longer to say what I could say to you in about 20 seconds. But just to say that this is one of the reasons we have these conversations is for you to be able to raise it. We know we came to talk about a new hotel site, but we hear a lot of concerns about other issues going on in the neighborhood, and that's why we come. Is you help us realize we got a lighting problem in certain neighborhoods in the city. Maybe Councilman Watson tried to do that, might not. We will do these regularly. I'll be here each quarter to do a town hall in this community about all the issues that we're facing, so we can make regular progress on the stuff that's bread and butter issues we got to do is just being a city providing good services to make sure you're not dealing with trash, you're not dealing with unresponsive times for us when you call 911 and to make sure you got lights where you need them. So we are committed to that too. We'll be back for those conversations as well.
And I'm going to say you're all going to get tired of us. We're holding monthly meetings starting February. So the first meeting is going to be at the Radisson in one of the conference rooms there. We're going to move them around Globeville because that's where the hotel is at. And we're going to host that February meeting for a report out of exactly what's going on, a report in from you. And we're going to hold those meetings each month for the first 6 months. The contract with Bayard is only 6 months. There is not a guarantee of renewal. They have specific things they have to deliver on, or they will not get a renewal of their contract. So the promise is monthly meetings starting February through June. In May, folks will know really how Bayard is performing and whether that contract is going to be renewed in June. So those are the steps that we're taking. We're going to make sure we're here more and more and for folks to give us feedback.
I'm going to close quickly. You all been so kind to stay late. Thank you so much to Sabrina. Thank you so much to Midori for all of her leadership, particularly for tonight. Thanks to Tina for being here and our folks from law enforcement. I'll just close with one last idea, which actually was a blessing I got from my daughter last week, because I had my 12-year-old daughter. I was helping her do some homework, and she was working on anthropology. She was studying Margaret Mead, and she said there's this interesting concept, because she said Margaret Mead discovered that there was one common trait you can identify when you look at fossils to know the moment that any group of people advanced to a civilization. So there's always only one thing that's the same. And she said the thing that is the same, the thing that shows you that folks have finally developed civilizations, it's the first time you see in fossils someone with a broken femur that is healed. Because previous to that, if you have a broken femur, if you have a broken leg, and you can't walk, you just stop there and an animal eats you, and that's the end of you. The idea that someone could get injured, could break a leg, and someone says, oh, realize you can't walk right now, or you can't hunt right now, or you can't feed yourself right now. Let me take care of you while we have the time for that leg to heal. And then when that leg heals, you can be back up and support yourself. That is fundamentally what makes us human. It's the idea that there are people on our left and our right that at some moment are going to need us. in the same way that in some moment we are going to need others to help us in our walk. And that is what we're trying to do here, is to be a city that says we will be that civilization when you are in the moment where you have that broken leg and need someone to say, let us help support you until you get back up on your feet. That's what we want to do. When we do that well, we know they can contribute to supporting all the rest of us. They can help lift this community, this neighborhood, and this city. We want to call them back to their best place to do that so that they can take our place with the rest of us to build a city that we're all proud of. So thank you for being here. Thanks for your partnership and your support, and look forward to staying at this work with you shoulder to shoulder for the years to come. Thanks so much for coming.